Exactly 1 year ago, November 10th, 2020, after a 2-year wait, Assassin's Creed Valhalla was finally released for everyone. A Viking epic that would see Eivor conquering England for her clan. A game that showed the full brutality and strength of the Northerners. Coming from Ubisoft's previous bestseller, Odyssey, the game had something that it needed to prove, that it can please both new and old fans of the series. Valhalla was one of the most hyped games of the year. People were excited, to say the least. The game, unfortunately, came out to less than good reviews, with people normally slamming it for its story and technical state. I actually think the game is quite good, but I'll get into these reasons in a bit. As you can probably tell, this video is a monster. This took so much time to prepare, so if you do enjoy this video, make sure to drop a like, maybe even subscribing, I don't know, whatever you want. This video will contain critiques, as well as the review of Assassin's Creed Valhalla's base game, and additional content released over the first year of the game's launch. But anyway, let's get into Assassin's Creed Valhalla's Year 1 review. So if you've been a fan of ACU since before 2020, you'll probably remember all of the excitement surrounding the Viking Age Creed game that was in the works. We now know this to be the massive game of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. The game's trailer launched and people were going off about all of the new features in the game. Probably the most hyped and waited feature from the trailer was dismemberment. Assassin's Creed games have always been bloody and violent, and there was no dismemberment ever, so what gives? I mean, Ubisoft implemented accidental amputations at the best time. I mean, imagine a Viking game without decapitations. Unheard of, really. The trailer also showed us a sneak peek of a few other things, such as the settlement system, like in older AC games, the Jomsviking and Raider crew, as well as the weak point system. Of course, the most talked about all of this was the weak point system. This introduced one-shot assassinations that were missing in Odyssey, and this made people ecstatic. But it was basically a quick time event for beefy enemies to kill them in one shot. It wasn't a deep system, but many, and I mean many, people enjoyed it. The Jomsviking crew was something that was teased but never really got much light or depth until the River Age came out in around mid-February. The base system didn't have much to it. You could recruit other player-made Jomsvikings to your ship and raid with them. I mean, that was really all that there was. But now moving away from the trailer and everything it promises, let's move into the actual review of the game that you all have been so desperately waiting for. Anyway, the most impressive thing about this game is probably the world that the game takes place in, Norway and England. Norway is a place grasped by the never-ending cold of the north, a stark contrast to England's green and very colorful landscape. Both of these worlds are brilliant in their design and are very unique in each region. It's always clear that what region you are standing in at any particular time, whether it's Francia, Ireland, Vinland, England, or Norway. Valhalla allows for a ton of variation and uniqueness in each of its handcrafted worlds, and in these worlds, the game really pushes the limits of last-gen consoles. Oh, that seems weird to say. I mean, not nearly as much as other recent titles like The Last of Us Part 2 or Ghost of Tsushima, but the game should still be praised for its brilliant landscape and graphical fidelity. In the world of Valhalla, there are around 20 regions that need to be conquered for your clan, most of them being in England, but others being in other narratively linked regions. But how do you navigate this vast open world? There are two primary ways to get around: longships and horseback. The horse is your own pocket car that you can take anywhere at any time. You can kick off the horse and fire arrows. It's simple. I mean, realistically, what else did you really expect a horse to be able to do? The second is using your longship. I mean, what Viking saga is truly complete without your very own longship? The longship enables you to travel the rivers of England and Norway extremely quickly and to gain access to ports along the riverside. This was its original function at launch, but has since changed slightly since then. There was originally supposed to be full-on naval combat on the rivers, but at some point in production it was cut out for some reason. I mean, it makes total sense as to why they did this. I mean, the rivers are remarkably small for one ship, and as far as historical accuracy goes, I'm not sure the Vikings ever truly used longships for combat purposes. From my knowledge, it was a solely traversal sort of ship compared to practically every other one that has ever existed. There have been several tweaks to the boat over the course of the game's lifespan. In February, along with the River Raids update, we got the ability to raise Eivor shields when enemy arrows are incoming. There is also a small boost that you can do that consumes stamina. I've never actually had to use any of these, so I don't know what their actual logistical purpose is. Along the world of England and Norway, there exist opportunities scattered across the map. These are artifacts, mysteries, and wealth. These are little dots that appear on the map and compass that indicate a certain object being in a place. Wealth can indicate anything gear or ability related. Mysteries are anything side content-y in the game that could grant XP, while artifacts are miscellaneous collectibles and cosmetic upgrades that can be found dotted around the map. These basically tell you exactly where an item you want to obtain is. So you just go to that place and do whatever it needs you to do. This can be anything such as finding a key, reuniting a man with his family based on their locations in a note, or anything such as that. Wealth chests basically just require you to puzzle your way into a room and obtain the chest or find the key. These are fine on their own, but when there are this many dotting the map, the "this door is barred" notification can get pretty damn annoying. I don't think I've ever had to search up this many guides on how to open a certain chest ever in my life. And this is coming from someone who 100%ed the game and its DLC. Mysteries can take the form of world events or other XP events that can be found all over the map. These help raise your XP and basically are just there to help you grind. But what are the world events? World events are little world building stories that take up less than 5 minutes of your time and require you to do some menial tasks such as chasing a random cat around for a couple of minutes. These are a great addition as they are a bite-sized nugget of content that are perfect for getting the feel of England. The biggest problem that I have with these world events is that it almost completely removes side quests. In Origins and Odyssey, both the Ubisoft Montreal and Quebec teams said that their goal was to create a world where every quest has a story, and I'm sorry, but Valhalla just doesn't have that. There are just no side quests with Eivor that actually mean anything. There is an odd one here and there, but these are so far and few that you really forget they exist, honestly. Overall, I would be a much happier person if we got to keep side quests while also adding in world events as well, because honestly, I actively enjoy both and think that they deserve a place in future AC games. It's just kind of a shame that we had to remove one of the most timely features of any game and replace it with something else. Like, why can't the two of them coexist? It's something that I brought up in my Origins video when I just referenced the parkour. It's weird that these two things just can't coexist with each other. One of the standouts of these mysteries are cairns and fighting battles. Cairns are intricate stone stacking minigames that have you delicately bouncing rocks on top of each other. And then, shit. The absolute standout of the two is fighting, or as advertised, Viking rap battles. These have you rhythmically make your opponent feel like shit through a very finely crafted and executed wordsmithery. Is that even a word? Honestly, I don't care. These are so fun and actually do impact the world around you via charisma points that you get from completing these. Charisma opens up new dialogue branches that you can talk your way out of in certain situations. These can make your life a lot easier, but also a lot more boring. But while I'm on the topic, I feel it's obligatory to talk about the elephant in the room: dialogue choices. Continuing from Odyssey, dialogue choices make branching impacts on the narrative from a single option. Who am I kidding? It doesn't do that. If you ask someone how they got to the place you are at, they'll answer that question, and then answer another question that you didn't answer them. And I noticed this when I went through my second playthrough of the game, and I realized that there's only an added sentence onto the front of whatever you ask them. Like, nothing changes at all. It's just the first sentence that the person says. It's kind of weird, honestly, how they decided to make this. Just the point being that the dialogue provides no real substance to the actual game, and it's just there to make it seem more like an RPG. I mean, I liked it better in Odyssey, because, like, you could change a ton of stuff by, like, a single option, but I don't know why they went this way. It's weird, I don't like it, but, I mean, that's just how it is. Well, at least on the bright side, something that was advertised for the game is that these choices are consistent with Eivor's stone-cold Viking persona, unlike Cassandra's more fluid personality, I guess. So that's an upgrade in the scheme of things, which is actually pretty good. We have a consistent character that behaves how a person would normally behave. Unfortunately, only a few of these choices actually matter in the long term. 6 to be exact, 2 of which you've just seen. It doesn't really matter what you pick outside of a couple of relationships. Nothing is truly impacted by the choices you make. Nothing is actually truly impacted by the choices you make for Eivor over the course of the entire narrative, which is really weird. But anyway, tangent over. Finally back to opportunities. There isn't really too much to get into regarding secrets though. These are just small, itty-bitty tasks that require you to chase a tattoo paper over the rooftops of London, or destroy satanic curses across England. I mean, everyday stuff, right? Regarding the tattoo chase, it brings up an important point. What does parkour play in the overall place of England? And that is just that it doesn't. I mean, honestly, there is not really ever a use for it. You use it to traverse the map, but it's never for your own enjoyment like in Unity or AC2. It's just there as a way for you to get around, and it's not something that's made for you to have fun with and actively enjoy. I honestly think that parkour needs a huge overhaul in the next game, because practically the only time that you ever see it is during these tattoo chases, and they barely happen. I mean, Assassin's Creed has kind of lost its part of its old identity. It's kind of sad, actually. There are also a couple of other mini-games scattered across the map you can partake in. These being beer drinking competitions, fishing, and Orlog. Drinking competitions are, well, drinking competitions. You have to do a long QuickTime event while trying to keep your balance throughout the entire time. I mean, it's Eivor getting drunk. Did you really want more? I mean, fishing is, it's fishing. Not much to say here. Cast a line, wait, rinse, repeat. Fishing. And this is hardcore fishing, if anyone is wondering. These, for the most part, are extremely straightforward. But something new that the game exposes is the fictional game of Orlog. This is basically just a dice game with some really cool rules, actually. I completed all of these across the map, and they're pretty fun, I have to say. I would highly recommend checking out Orlog if you just get the chance. My only problem with it is that it doesn't give you money, because I would be making bank, because I am god tier in Orlog. Fight me, I dare you. Other than the world map, you can use your trusted companion, Senu. Wait, no. Icarus. Oh, no, shit. Sunin. That's it. The Raven. Sunin can be taken control of by Eivor and used as a scouting tool. Eivor can also use them to find nearby opportunities and loot in her nearby area. Sunin will also approximately give you the location of your target. I mean, honestly, this seems like a junk feature. As in, something that was in the previous games that actually had a function, that was then carried on to the next game, but just without a purpose. Because instead of being used as a spotting and recon tool in Origins and Odyssey, I mean, he's just sort of there, chillin'. He exists, but there isn't much purpose to him. He's just briefly mentioned in the story, if at all, so I don't really know what's up with him and everyone's pet birds. And the reason behind Sunin no longer being used as a recon tool is because of the return of Eagle Vision, or as referred to in-game, Odin's Sight. There is a reason why Eivor calls it this, but that delves into spoiler territory. So if you want to know more about those, check out my narrative review of the game, as well as the explanation of the mythical arcs. These aren't really good videos. You can watch them if you want. It really doesn't matter. I could care less. Unlike the standard rescaling of color in the previous games, Odin's Sight turns the entire screen this weird shade of blue and turns the enemies a deep red. While I like the return of the iconic assassin skills, it does have a bit of strangeness to it. This is because the entire enemy is red, and they're highlighted, not just the outline, but their entire body. And because of this, I can never truly tell which way an enemy is actually facing. I might think that I'm being sneaky and trying to get behind them, but whoops, turns out that I walked right into their face, trying to be sneaky, and got instantly caught. Looking at this still frame here, it's really hard to tell which way this enemy is facing, and I'll show you in a second. And as you may or may not have guessed, he was facing away from me, something that I could not tell. This is one of the broader quarrels that I have with stealth that really makes the playstyle, well, kind of hell. First of all, the detection system is spotty AF. You can pull out your bow and instantly get spotted from across the map by some random dude facing the other direction. I mean, come on Ubisoft, you've mastered this for 12 games in a row, and you're telling me that you mess it up on the 13th? Come on, do better. But aside from that low note, stealth is still pretty solid when it works, I mean, which is barely because of the spotty AI, but there are still plenty of opportunities to take out a person. An arrow to the head, a hidden blade assassination, or a well-placed arrow on a weak piece of a chain are all very good ways to take someone out. Adding to the, I guess, goodness of the stealth is the return of one-shot assassinations. Although this is a skill unlockable at the beginning of the game, it can be used to trigger a QTE on a powerful enemy to one-shot them consistently. It's great that this is actually a thing, because you can use stealth as a major part of your playstyle on paper, unlike in Odyssey and Origins. Of course, this is only in theory because of the crappy AI. And yeah, you can probably tell that I am kinda pissed at Yubi for doing this. And a fact about Eivor is that she likes to be unique. I mean, she's a Viking, so I mean, you can't judge her, but she wears the hidden blade on the top of her arm, not the bottom. So you're telling me that they could have just flipped the blade around and it would work? And that they wouldn't have had to cut off their fingers for 1500 years? Okay, Yubi, whatever you say. And in the words of Hytham,
this is deeply unorthodox.
Speaking of traditions, the tradition of social stealth returns to the series. But it's pretty useless. I have never felt one single time when I was required to use social stealth, like, at all. So little, in fact, I don't even have any footage of it other than this. It's just way faster to climb on rooftops outside of a guard's vision than it is to social stealth your way into, well, practically anything. There is one way you can use social stealth, which is blending with monks and sitting on benches, but as I said earlier, there's really no reason for you to ever do this. I mean, climbing out of the way and going on a rooftop is just so much faster than social stealth could ever be. But I know all of this review has mostly been negative for the past, 19 minutes? But I promise you, it will get more positive. Just hold on, please. I mentioned that there exists a skill tree in the game, so let me explain to you how this works. But a lot of people have been calling this the skill bush. I'm not going to be using this word because I'm fairly certain it was coined by Luke Stevens, but it does perfectly describe how the tree works and looks. It's not like you pick a path and stay on said path. You can cross over into any other side from anywhere on the side of the skill tree. 1 second you're in the melee second, and then you switch to the middle of the range section. It's really hard to explain what is happening in the skill tree whenever you do something, but something is happening. And the reason for this is because of the small stat nodes. These are such small little changes that you really don't notice anything. Like, as you can see up on screen now, the Way of the Wolf. What does +1 attack mean? We don't know. I don't know. You don't know. It's a number that I don't know what it does. It's just there. It does something, but this is one of the problems that is also present with the gear that I'll talk about later, that there's no real feel of how something works. It's just a number that doesn't actually have any meaning. It feels like you're adding to the tree, not because it's making Eivor more powerful, but because it's making the number bigger. That is honestly the best way that I can explain what the hell is going on. The only real impact that you can feel are the thick skill nodes. These have an actual impact on the game and have a tangible difference on your character. These can range from increased health regen to being able to somersault over enemies when they attack. You can actually physically use these and are really the only reason I could see someone pouring any skill points into anywhere to get from one big node to another. The problem that I have with this quote-unquote skill tree is that you will always get all of the skill nodes. Unlike in Origins or Odyssey, you will get all of the skills, no doubt. In Origins, you have to decide which skills you wanted to buy because chances are, most likely, you will not get all of the skills. In order to get one thing, you have to sacrifice something else. In Valhalla, this is unfortunately not the case, because by the end of the game, you will almost certainly be at power level 400, which is the original power level cap. So this way, you don't lose out on any of the skills at all. This kinda sucks, because it takes away all the choice and risk with taking one skill over another. There is no sacrifice here, there is no cost to picking one skill over another, because chances are you'll get them anyway. And what makes this probably even worse is the fact that you can reset your skill points at any time. Meaning, oh, don't want this, want something else, just choose to do it. It's free, it literally doesn't cost anything. It's really stupid the way that they decided to implement the skill tree. It's really stupid and it irks me. But at least in the post-launch support for the game, they did add around 40 extra levels filled with unique perks that actually do make a difference rather than insignificant and frankly annoying little skill nodes that the base game had. I mean, honestly, the most hyped feature that Ubisoft wanted to include was probably the settlement system. Eivor will slowly expand and widen the region of Ravensthorpe, her English settlement. Each one of the buildings in the settlement has a specific use for Eivor. These range from stables, blacksmiths, tattoo shops, and way more. Upgrading these will allow Ravensthorpe to grow in popularity and attract new people to it, thus expanding your settlement. Most of these buildings give Ravensthorpe a feast buff that can be activated by holding a feast in the town hall. These will all then give Eivor a morality boost for the next 3 hours of game time. The buff isn't that much, it's just some stuff here and there, but it only costs 50 to 60 silver. It isn't bad, so I'll let it slide. It's nice, it's fun. It doesn't really mean much. When building multiple new buildings, you can actually increase Ravensthorpe infamy level. Doing this opens up more main story as well as a few actual side quests, not world events by the way. But back to upgrading buildings, there are a few things required to make a building and expand one. Supplies and raw materials. Supplies are easy enough. You get them by opening these small chests scattered around the map. Sunin can also be used to spot these, so I guess that's more use for the bird, I guess? But the way you get raw materials is a lot more exciting. This is where being a Viking truly comes into play. Raiding and ransacking Christian monasteries. Indicated by red axes along the waterfront, Eivor can take a raiding party to burn these monasteries to the ground. Here you'll be confronted by enemy Saxons that you have to kill before you burn and pillage the entire thing, just like a Viking. You may then use the aforementioned Odin site to reveal the locations of the raw supplies. With one of your crew members, you can force open a chest in order to get the coveted wealth from inside. I mean, honestly, I don't know why there's just gold lying around at Christian monasteries everywhere, but for some reason they're there. Fortunately for all of us, these aren't the only raid locations you can do. Along the river, there are unmarked camps dotting the side that you can also take your party to raze to the ground. But sadly, the monastery raids are not replayable at all. You can still raid them multiple times, but it just will be without the excitement of opening up chests to gain the loot. It still technically works for what it is, I would have liked to have some sort of reward when going through it multiple times. It's still fun without it. I mean, it's raiding and murdering people. What? Why wouldn't it be fun? But it's just kind of annoying that there isn't one. I mean, this was added to the Reverse game mode, but it wasn't added into the core game, which does irk me a lot. I mean, you get what you can. Aside from that, with your materials in hand, you may return to Raventhorpe with your bounty. Upgrades can then be held and your settlement may expand. So far I've been talking about raiding, but what I haven't talked about is how you actually go a Viking, aka beating up them bloody Saxons. Valhalla was also marketed on a brand new feature that can change the way you play the game entirely. Dual wielding weapons. So gear is sorted into two categories, one-handed and two-handed. These seem about how you would expect them to sound. One-handed means that you can dual wield either two of the same weapon type or two completely different weapons. This leads to many unique combinations Eivor can make. Want to use a flail and an axe, or a hammer and a dagger? It is completely up to you. Hell, you can even use dual shields. I'm not joking, this is a real thing, you've seen it in the past clip. But this opens up so many options for how you want to play the game. You can go all offensive with two axes, or you can have the best of both worlds, a shield or an axe. Or you could go full tank mode with two heavy shields. There is just so much variability in each playstyle. Everyone will most likely run a different combination of weapons. Earlier in the game, heavy weapons function the same way. One weapon can only be used at a time though. But as you go along the melee fighting tree, you will soon realize that there is a new skill, the heavy dual wield. So guess what that means? Double heavy weapons. I mean, this is insane. The ability to use two large frickin' axes or two swords that are bigger than you is absolutely absurd. But I mean, it's a game about goddamn Vikings. I think it gets an obligatory slide. You can also decide to mismatch these weapons if you want. You can use a one-handed weapon as well as a two because, I mean, why the hell not? Currently, the most effective strategy in the game is running two of the same weapon. This is because you use both weapons in every hit compared to the once every finisher when using mismatched weapons. But by far the most efficient way to kill someone is by using the dual spears. I mean, you can see me using one of the DLC weapons, the gay bullig, in the background, and you can see how much of a monster it is the entire time. It is such a powerful weapon. I love it. It's amazing. Valhalla, much like its predecessors, also uses a light-heavy attack style of combat. Heavy to break a block or defense, and light to deal high damage fast. There is also a new attack to the game, the left bumper special attack. This uses whatever weapon that is in your offhand, so your left one. So whichever weapon you are not currently using at the time does a special move with it. By holding the parry button, you can activate the shield block mode or any of the other various attacks. These differ per weapon class and can be used to devastating effect against many enemies when used well. I mean, I absolutely adore this addition, as it really spices up the combat in ways that any of the other AC games could never truly pull off. And I really hope the system does stay in the game, and the special attacks as well, because it's amazing. But I mean, I totally understand if it's just a Viking exclusive thing, but crossing my fingers. Valhalla Ultra introduces a new system, the stamina system. That's right, Assassin's Creed has now officially introduced a stamina bar to its game. I mean, what is this, Dark Souls? Dodging enemy attacks, missing blows, or using heavy strikes lowers Eivor's stamina. So instead of only managing yours and the enemy's health, you also have to monitor your stamina, because once it's out, you have to wait a good 7 seconds until it's back up again. Then in that time, you physically cannot dodge an enemy strike, meaning you're screwed, which means you're dead. Even the horse has stamina. I mean, it has stamina. Why does your main source of movement have to take a break? Yeah, I mean, it's a horse, I know, but why? This worked well in every other game that has had horses, and nobody ever complained. Hey, this game isn't realistic. The horse can run for miles without even stopping for a breather. Yeah, so can the protagonist. Be quiet. Okay, I swear. Tangent over, alright? I will definitely not start ranting about horses in the future. back to not talking about horses. I mean, on the bright side, horses can swim. They can swim. They can finally swim. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, stamina is pretty much a handicap to make the game hard. Something that is definitely needed in its base form. I feel like I haven't said this, but the highlight of the game is definitely 100% the combat. Yes, I know I spent the last minute whining about horses, but just forget I did that, okay? Forget horses ever existed at all. They are a myth now and nothing more. I said no ranting about, what was I ranting about? I don't think that exists. Never mind that, but I adore the combat in this game. Like, I absolutely love it for everything that it is. Honestly, I would not enjoy Valhalla nearly as much if it wasn't for the combat in the game. It's so much more weighty and powerful and crunchy compared to Odyssey, and I live for it. You can feel the weight of Eivor hits landing on an enemy. It just feels so good. You pretty much just spam your weapons until you reach the finisher, which is an extra powerful move that deals, well, the bulk of the damage. And I cannot stress how nice the combat feels. And good for me, the dual wield system isn't the only one that was implemented into Valhalla. The next best feature is the stun system. An enemy's stun level is indicated by a gold bar above their health, and this can be lowered in a few different ways. The main way to do this is by parrying. This takes a sizable chunk off the stun bar and leaves them dazed for more attacks to come their way. The bar can also be lowered by doing general attacks on an enemy. Depending on the weapon's perks that I will get to later, it can change how much stun is inflicted upon each entity. The more the stun bar is lowered, the more damage an enemy's armor is. This allows Eivor to deal extra punishing and devastating attacks. Lowering the stun bar can also be done in a third and final way: arrows. Each enemy type in the game has a weak spot on their bodies. Putting an arrow in that space will drop their stun to 0 or take off a good chunk of it. This was teased in the trailer with Eivor slicing a banneret enemy straight through his eyes. The weak point system also really adds a newfound appreciation to the ranger playstyle, because honestly I don't see too many people ever play ranged, but at least now there is a new and viable way to use arrows. Upon hitting 0 stun, Eivor's foe will drop to the ground exhausted, opening up to a stun attack from her. And this is an absolutely devastating attack that will either almost kill an enemy, or most likely, like 90% of the time, will straight up obliterate and destroy the enemy instantly. And Eivor, being the brutal Viking that she is, will put a less than swift end to her foes. The animations of Valhalla are all very brutal and gruesome to an extreme extent. I mean, not Doom heavy, but still gory and brutal enough to make your jaw drop the first time that it happens. These happen every time an enemy is stunned, and I love every time it happens. These also occur during the death of elite and special enemies, when they die, but I still can't get over how freaking good these things look. But there is a problem I've heard a lot of people talk about, and that's that there's only one animation per enemy type. I mean that for the standard enemy you see, the same exact death animation will play every single time you get a stun finish on them, leading some people to become annoyed at the frequency and length of these finishers. I myself, after almost 400 hours of playtime, I have never gotten tired of these animations. I mean, they're just way too good to not watch every single time, but I can definitely understand how these constant repeating finishers can be annoying to some people. Fortunately for those people, Ubisoft implemented a feature that stops the camera from zooming in during these executions and gives the feeling of being less lengthy and making you feel like you're still in the fight during these animations. This is always a choice, but personally that feature is never getting turned on because screw you, I like glory kills. Now that's enough about stun, I need to talk about something else. So let's talk about abilities and adrenaline. Adrenaline has been in the past 2 AC games, and it's accumulated by either taking damage or landing successive hits on an enemy. It isn't really that hard to get a full bar of this stuff. It's pretty base level like in Origins and Odyssey, but it really shines in the abilities. These are all special moves that Eivor can perform that cost adrenaline. This includes throwing axes at a singular enemy, throwing axes at multiple enemies, or a single axe at one enemy. I mean, I think you get the point of this. Vikings love their axes. There are also some more abilities, such as the ability to light Eivor's weapon on fire, bash them into a wall, or headbutt them really hard. The abilities are really fun to use, but I do have a problem with them. They are kind of redundant. In Odyssey, enemies were a lot harder to defeat just in general, so abilities were needed in order to win a fight every time. Unfortunately, in Valhalla, enemies aren't really that hard to kill. Thus, you are less likely to need to use any abilities. I can confidently kill any opponent without using any abilities whatsoever. The only real reason why I would want to use it is just to feel like a Viking and to get a marginally easier and flashier kill. There's no actual reason. I mean, other than that, I really don't have a problem with the abilities in the game. They are diverse, functional, and can be really fun to use. Another change brought onto Valhalla, I feel like there are a lot of these, is the rationing of health. In Odyssey, health could be regained using adrenaline, and in Origins it would regenerate over time, while in the older games you can be healed using medicine. And this is much more like that than the other RPG games. You can find mushrooms and fruits on the ground that Eivor can use to heal herself up, or just to store it for a later battle. This means that you need a lot more preparation for the fight. If you go in there with low rations, you will have to be more careful with fighting, because you just don't have as much health, well, obviously. The game really forces you to prepare for encounters and fights rather than just having to straight into it unprepared and still coming out victorious. So the ration system is definitely a step up from all the previous games, and I hope it stays that way. It rewards preparation and incentivizes actually knowing how you do this. It's much better. And for the combat, there are plenty of enemies that you have to be prepared and rationed up to fight. So let's talk about these quickly. Excluding the DLC, there are 25 individual enemy types in the game, all of which come with their own moves, executions, and playstyles that you need to adapt to in order to be effective. There are several codex pages in the log that detail the strengths and weaknesses of every enemy in the game. This is super helpful if you need help with a certain one or just want to find a faster way of killing them. And these enemies are actually really diverse and special, because none of them really feel the same. One enemy has an elite wolf and can throw bear traps at you and light their sword on fire. Another is practically a tank that can pick Eivor and throw her across the map in the middle of combat. I'm not joking, this is a thing. But my only gripe with the enemy variety is that there is, well, not enough enemy variety. I'll explain what that means. It means that while there are loads of enemies that you can fight, most of them never appear for long. One of the enemies, a Macbeth, I swear I've fought less than 10 times. I just wish that these stronger and special enemies will appear more to give me a real challenge. I mean, there's only so much trouble you can have with a single enemy after 400 hours of gameplay. And the final thing that I need to touch on is the way that the gear is managed and maintained. Unlike in Odyssey or Origins, each weapon is unique, meaning that enemies will not drop them at random. Each weapon can only be contained by either a encounter or a wealth item that I mentioned earlier. That is the only way you can get these weapons, by doing boss fights, looting, only that. And I actually honestly love this. I mean, it stops the majority of the loot overflow that you would get in the past two games where it was just a nightmare to sort through all of your stuff. It was horrible. I hated it. And this is just so much better. But going back onto the weapons themselves. Each weapon will contain a unique perk that only that weapon has. This is also the same as Origins and Odyssey. These can range from increased damage when dodging to lighting an enemy on fire when they hit you. These also have to be taken into consideration when picking a loadout. You might have a weapon with really good stats but crappy boosts, or the other way around. You kind of have to decide what is and isn't worth it to spend time upgrading. Each weapon also has several rune slots that can be placed into it as you upgrade it. I'll get to this later. These runes are little boosts, much like the perks that the weapon already has. So it's more like each weapon has multiple perks. It's just that you can choose all but one of them. And don't worry, you can always change these rules later. They're not set in stone. I mean, they're called runes. I don't know why they're not set in stones. Anyway, the same rules apply for armor as well. And I think it's a good time to learn how to differentiate the two types of runes. There are minor rune slots on these that give a small bonus to your character, such as plus 18.9 health. Yeah, that's a real bonus. But there is a problem that I have with this. 18.9 what? Percent extra health? It never clarifies, and the only thing that you can do is pick the thing with the better number, because it really doesn't matter what actually happened. You've probably heard me talk about this earlier in the review, but I'm just bringing it up again, because it's one of those things that I feel needs to actually be touched on, because it's just super weird. I don't know why this is a thing. Like, come on, Ubisoft, give us units. The boosts on these are just so small you barely notice it at all, if you even do notice it. And this also goes for upgrading. When doing this, the health increases by like 2. This is noticeably actually, but it's like, again, 2. What? Why are there no units in this game? Ubi, please. I've been dragging on units for so long in this. But these main armor buffs also contain the same problem, as well as the skill nodes that I brought up earlier. It never specifies how much of a change something does, and it's honestly kind of annoying me. So going away from the uselessness of the runes and units is the actual way you upgrade, and believe it or not, there are 2 of them. Enhancing and upgrading things are 2 very different things. Upgrading increases the base stats of an item and makes it generally more powerful. You saw this in the previous clip when I upgraded it and mentioned that stuff only increases by like 0.2. But enhancing can only be done as your blacksmith gunner in Ravensthorpe, or as you see here in Francia. This uses ingots that you find at wealth icons or while exploring the world. What happens is that it gives it a new rune slot and allows it to be upgraded further to use more resources on it. It makes the item look better, gives a new slot, and allows you to use more crafting materials to make it basically stronger. And that's basically how gear progression and upgrades work. It's a simple system, but it makes progression really fluid as you play the game. The only problem I genuinely have with this is that titanium is way too hard to find. Titanium is by far the rarest material in the game at all, and is needed for practically every upgrade after the midpoint of the game. And barely any of my gear is actually upgraded all the way, because of how hard the titanium bottlenecks to. It's really annoying. It's not that bad. It's just kind of annoying. It's not a train smash. And last, but not least, for the base game is the story. But wait. Before you click off, there will be mostly no spoilers in this segment. They will be very small. I will just talk about the quest structure, pacing, assassins, and order of the ancients, but there will be no major spoilers. Okay, maybe minor ones, but not ones that are big enough to actually matter. We good? Okay. So first I need to give an overview of the plot. Eivor is a Viking warrior from Norway, as I hope most of us probably know. She, along with her brother Sigurd, are a group of warriors that leave for England in the hopes of establishing a settlement. After all, this is the Viking invasion of England. But before you leave, you are met by 2 hidden ones from Miklagard, that is also known by everyone else as Constantinople. These hidden ones accompany Eivor to England and help her establish her settlement of Ravensthorpe. From there on, you will visit Randvi, Sigurd's wife, to help plan your conquest. Starting with Leicestershire or Grantebridgeshire, I have no idea how to say it, you then conquer every region in England as well as other countries, which either one coming with its own story and alliances that you need to help make. You do this rinse and repeat around 20 regions. Out of all 20 of these, it only really feels like 5 were necessary. And this is because the game is split into 4 different story arcs that all need to be resolved before you start another. The first being, well, the Order of Ancients storyline, which involves Eivor doing assassin stuff and murdering ancients. It works the same as Odyssey, as there is a tree of targets to find and kill. Each one of these requires you to find clues either through the story or the world. Each one of these will allow you to get closer to finding the Grand Magister, the ancient leader. After assassinating a target, you will receive a medallion from the Order's corpse. These can then be turned into one of the hidden ones at Ravensthorpe Bureau for rewards and abilities. This storyline is completely independent from the main two, which is why I'm covering it first. The second of the four are also on their own and are the mythical arcs. I mean, I'm sure you've seen the promos. Asgard, Jotunheim, Fenrir. These are all in the mythical arcs. And there is actually a reason other than the team just wanting to add a mythical realm. I mean, it is just Ubisoft wanting to add a mythical realm, but at least there's a narrative reason for why it's happening, and all this crazy stuff. Not just because Ubisoft wanted it to happen. There's an actual reason, and it really expands on the lore. Like, really. It is everything an Assassin's Creed fan could want. It's amazing. I love it. I can't touch on it because it's spoilers, but yeah, it's great. The first main quest that ties in with the other is the Conquering of England. This has you visiting the aforementioned Ronvi and Alliance map that can be used to track your friends and foes all across England. You'll forge alliances with powerful historical figures such as Halfdan, Ragnarsson, Ivar the Boneless, and other famous Viking heroes. Each available alliance will be slowly revealed to you and as you conquer other territories and increase Ravensthorpe's success. In each of these, there will be 2 order-related quest lines, one in each small city, Jorvik, London, and Winchester. These will have you coming to civilians' aids to rid 3 members of the Order and free each of these bustling metropolises. The second type of these will be the other main quests. These involved Side as well as the Order of Ancients, and these are by far the most exciting out of all the quest lines. The other ones, which I will call side quest lines from now on, are only connected in their own region, meaning that what happens in one region does not generally affect the other stories. Unlike the side quest lines, the main quest line has a real level intrigue and mystery that is just begging to be uncovered. Unfortunately for the way the game is designed, you won't be finding out the mystery for a good long while. Since the only way to unlock new conquerable regions is to complete the previous set, it makes it that you have to complete one set to do the other. This in turns means you progress the main story, then have to wait 6 to 10 hours to unlock the next one because you're doing the other side quest lines. This completely offsets the pacing of the game and really slows it down to a drag at points, with how uninteresting and how unengaged it can make you. One of the major complaints from the AC fanbase, mind you, I did not come up with this, so I'm not taking credit for it. This is just something that I've heard in the community, that it's commonly accepted that side quests still exist in the game. It's just in the form of the side quest lines. Do you see what I'm getting at? The side quest line does not impact the main one. It doesn't matter, it doesn't have any significance in the story at all, but it's still mandatory. And this drags the game out for way too long and makes it extremely tiring to play at times. I will talk about the length later, but it is such a big problem with the entirety of Valhalla. But I need to stay on path right now. What would have been a better opportunity would have been to have the side quest lines always be available and to be able to move through the main quest line at your own leisure. Maybe taking a break for a bit to do some side stuff here and there. Honestly, I think this could have worked really, really well. Maybe in a future patch, they could do something similar. I don't know honestly, but at this point it seems like a really far-fetched idea that Ubisoft would ever dream of implementing this into Valhalla, like, ever. Now on to the point that I brought up earlier, the length. And oh boy, let me tell you, this is going to be a long segment. I mean, not really, but... First of all, each region's arc is around 3 to 4 hours to complete, and there are exactly 21 in the base game. So, let's do some math. So that rounds out to around 63 to 84 hours to just complete the main story. This, as you can tell, is a pretty long time. Now, let's go with the conservative estimate of 63 hours. That is without grinding for XP at all or going on little tangents about horses or water. And I've seen a good majority, from what I've heard, put down the game because of how bloated and long it was. The game just never wants to end. One region after another keeps going. This is there is never an end in sight until around like the 50th hour, in which you still need a good 15 hours to complete the game. I feel like I'm beating a stamina drained horse at this point. It's the game is way too long. It's just Ubisoft never again. No more 60-hour games. Please, while I personally don't ever get bored because I love these kinds of games, I did leave the game from February until early October. A good 8-month gap because of how much I didn't want to play it. Now, with the new game modes, I do actually want to play. But honestly, for someone who isn't a no-life over Christmas vacation, it must have been a horror to get this entire game completed. I mean, the section wasn't that long, like I said, but you get my point. Pretty much being that this game is way too long, bloated, and endless. Unlike the horse's stamina for some reason. One huge thing that I absolutely love about this game, and have not mentioned yet, is the addition of assault battles. These take place at the end of every story arc, or most of them, and there are around 10 of them. It starts the same for the most part, except with some exceptions. This has Eivor manning a battering ram and destroying the outer walls of a heavily guarded castle. It is an all-out battle. Arrow storms, burning oil, powerful enemies, and well-armed soldiers make this a task only the mightiest of Viking warriors can accomplish, also known as Eivor the Wolf-Kissed. These assaults are just so satisfying whenever they happen, and it's a great reward for completing a story arc all the way through. It's so amazing when the raid music starts up and you just feel like a one-woman army. I would be annoyed by how many of these there are, but I just can't be. They're just so fun they're just so fun. They're enjoyable. I've nothing to really complain about. They're fun, they're cool. I love them. I mean, it's Vikings storming a castle. Is there really anything that you can possibly complain about? And now for my closing thoughts on the base game itself. Yeah, that's right. This is just the base game. There's more coming. And overall, the story is pretty good. It's decent. It's just a bit too long and drawn out for a standard player to enjoy. It does have a lot more AC elements in the game that Odyssey lacked, such as memory corridor scenes. It also probably has the most lore out of any AC game ever. I mean, it expands on the series so much. It makes me so happy that the devs included all this. Overall, I love the game. It's really a personal preference on what someone thinks about it. I love it. But there's one last thing that I need to touch on, is the soundtrack and music. It is absolutely phenomenal. Let me tell you that. It's just amazing. You can hear in the background the entire time, and in my opinion, the soundtrack definitely deserved a nomination in the Game Awards. The game has 3 composers: Einar Selvik of Warduna, the Viking band, Jesper Kyd, you know, the man, the myth, the legend, the guy who created one of the most recognizable themes in video game history, Enzion's Famille, something like that. And the third, and my favorite, is Shara Shockner. She composed Modern Warfare, Origins, and many other soundtracks. It's weird how these 3 are all my favorite soundtracks, right? I mean, you heard me talk about her in my Origins review, because I'm such a fan. I love her music. And now the base game has been more or less completely reviewed. So I guess it's time to talk about the post-launch content, right? So let's do that right now. So from now on, the way that I'll be talking about the post-launch content is going in chronological order of these releases, starting with the River Raids. So, in early February of 2021, Ubisoft launched the first major content expansion for Valhalla, a replayable mode that provided tons of hours of new content for players to sink their teeth into. River Raids added a ton of new depth to the Longship and Jomsviking systems, something that the both of them have been desperately lacking since launch. The River Raid starts with a man named Vaughn joining your settlement with rumors of Saxon rivers begging to be raided. He also says that St. George's armor is spread across these 3 rivers. Thoroughly intrigued, Eivor sets out to find these legendary pieces of armor. Eivor is now allowed to recruit other Jomsvikings that can be added to her Viking army. Each Jomsviking has a rank, 1 to 3 originally, but now up to 5. These can be purchased from the newly founded Raiders Hall in Leicestershire, just outside of Ravensthorpe. The higher the level, the stronger and beefier they will be. They are also allowed to carry more rations on them to stay in the fight longer. During these river raids, Eivor's rations will be dropped to 0, and she'll have to pick more up along the way for her and her raiding crew. By ransacking villages, she will gain a ration for her and her crew all individually. These work for Eivor as well, rations, but when a Jomsviking is about to be killed, they will heal themselves for as many rations as they have. Eivor will then continue downriver and raid different outposts for foreign supplies. These can then be used back at the settlement to get new armor sets and cosmetics for Eivor, as well as her ship. As she raids more, the Saint's armors will slowly start appearing around the two rivers. After completing all of them, as well as getting river clues scattered around the map, a third river will be unlocked. This one contains a champion at the end. Kill him to claim St. George's heavy sword. The fight is extremely disappointing, but later in this year this will be made up for. I don't have the footage because I wasn't making this video when I played it. There are also several abilities to be unlocked through the river raids, these being Shoulder Bash, Precision Arrow, War Cry, and more. I found myself not using any of these, except for 2 of them. Every time a river is completed, the difficulty will go up, meaning that enemies will be more aware of Eivor as well as river checkpoints being set up. Eivor has to break the chain to get over the river to continue on her raids. I don't like this at all because it just makes my raiding takes much more annoying, even more so with its 5-minute loading time. Yeah, you heard me, 5 minutes. I mean, Valhalla's normal load time is around 45 seconds, so this is an extreme departure from the standard. And it's kind of just weird that it takes that long. I mean, I understand it's technology, but it's annoying. So after completing all the current 6 river raids, there is nothing really to do. There is no need to go for foreign supplies, as there is no way to spend it anyways. I mean, I would like to see maybe an XP incentive towards the river raids, because currently it only gives XP for killing enemies, which as you probably know, it isn't very much. So maybe Yubi could add a way to grind XP using the river raids to produce a secondary sort of incentive after the main rewards have been unlocked. Overall, I like the river raids. They're a good addition to the game, despite lacking a lot of the things that were promised, such as the idea of replayability. The next new addition to the game is the Mastery Challenges. Mastery Challenges take place in the mystical realm of Hugerheim, a place where Eivor can practice and hone her ability to kill without any consequences to her actions. These come in 3 types: Wolf, Raven, and Bear. Wolf meaning ranged, Raven being stealth, and Bear being fighting. I have no idea why they're linked this way. Apparently it was something in pre-production with the skills, but I don't know, it's just how they're named. On the other hand, each of these have a bronze, silver, and gold medal to earn for energy currency. But how do you get these medals? So, in each trial there are optional objectives to complete. Each of these is different for each of the 5 challenges for each of the skills. So there's 15 challenges in total for those who need me to do the math. Raven, for example, may have you not being detected or to kill everyone before completing the objective. Bear might have you kill enemies using fire, and the Wolf can see you killing enemies indirectly with the bow, such as blowing them up with an oil barrel. All of these things are extremely challenging as you need to get all the kills to match these criteria to get the gold medal. So to get the gold in the aforementioned Wolf challenge, you need to kill every enemy like that. It seems reasonable to say this is a ridiculous thing to have someone do. To make this even harder, the game also gives you auto-customized loadouts and armor sets that you can't change to up the ante. Honestly, this mode is so hard to get all golds. Only like 0.2% of the players who got Valhalla accomplished this, according to the Xbox trophies. I, myself, am a completionist, as you can probably tell, but even this is too far for me. There is me, and then there is a no-life certification. I mean, they're practically the same thing, but I think you know what I'm getting at. The ending of the challenges also links in with the first Civilization storyline. It kind of ended on a cliffhanger, so I'm sure this means more is coming to Valhalla, something that will branch out the narrative. And I'm hopeful, I'm hopeful that this comes soon. I mean, more first Civ stuff, I'm all for it. Now moving back to River Raid. In late September, we got our second big River Raid update, and this makes the game so much better overall. We got 3 new maps in total, more Jomsviking levels, even more weapons and armors, as well as new enemy types for base players. With the expansion of River Raids, we also branched further out into Europe, introducing both Ireland and Francia to those who do not have the DLCs. These maps are so much larger than the original 3, and bring way more variability and fun to the game. With the DLC worlds being introduced, the enemies are also being shown. So now in River Raids, you can fight off all the Irish Druids and Frankish soldiers you could ever think of. I mean, I cannot express how absolutely amazing this is. I've never seen a game give away free things that normally DLC players get only, without actually taking away any of the exclusivity from the DLC. Now that there are so many more enemies in the River Raids, it makes it so much more varied than the original update. It is also so much more enjoyable and fun all around. Adding to this fun, there are now 6 new bosses around the original and new maps for Eivor to find and kill to claim their weapons. But there are 6 new weapons added total worth the update, including a one-handed sword, something fans only with the Siege of Paris DLC can actually access. I think it's so good that Ubisoft, despite being a crummy company, is actually doing something to improve the game for the players of said game, not just trying to leech off of people's money. As most of us already know about Ubisoft, it's a double-edged sword. So I want to touch on Rada quickly. Rada is a little time traveler lad from Origins who visits your settlement early in the game. He acts as a replacement for Sargon of the Olympians from Odyssey. Every day, he has a set of 2 contracts to complete. Doing so rewards 5 opal. I will explain what this does in just a sec. Hold on. These contracts are pretty bare and plain. It just has you go to the same location every day, kill an enemy, and then you're done. This happens every day, by the way, and in the most recent update they added a few new quests to spice things up and makes the game a little bit less repetitive. It kind of worked, it isn't as stale, but these new quest types are still boring and don't offer anything of substance. There is also a contract that faces Eivor against higher level enemies at once every week to give extra opal. Upon completion, you will receive 20. But what is opal is the most important thing. Opal is the in-game currency that acts as a way to get normally MTX related items. That's it, I said the word. Every day, one item from the Helix store cycles in that you can buy for a certain amount, whether this be a tattoo, ship cosmetic, gear, or anything. There is also a weekly refresh of 6 items that can be used for anything as well. You can use opal to buy a part of a set if you want. I have several paid armor items just for playing Rada, and it's nice that this is a thing considering the huge amount of money that the Helix store pushes, so let's start talking about that. So the Animus store is the e-store for Ubisoft where you can purchase items like weapons, armors, and cosmetics. At launch, the game had 9 sets, and currently, with the DLC, it sits at around maybe 25, I can't count. But guess how many Helix, meaning paid armor sets there are? Well, the answer is kind of astonishing. Over 30. Yeah, if you bought the game's Season Pass and played it to completion, you get 25 armor sets. But if you spend money, you get 55 plus sets. Now this is bad enough that there are 30 Helix packs for all cost money, but guess how much money each set costs? 2,300 Helix credits. Or, for the uninitiated, $20 per set. So now let's do some math. $20 times 30 sets equals a whopping $600. Plus the DLC, which at a standard price is $40. So to get all the armor sets in the game, you will need to drop at least 640 on the game, plus the 60 for the base game. So to get this straight, you need to pay $700 to get every single armor set in the game. But wait, it gets worse. Armor sets aren't the only thing you can buy in the Helix store. There are also weapons, horse skins, Sunan skins, longship hulls and sails, and figureheads, all sold separately. I don't have the energy to do the math on this, and I figured how much each of these costs and how much these are going to be, so I'm just going to eyeball it. $900 is what I say. If you want everything in Valhalla, you literally need to spend almost $1,000 on this stuff. Like, what the hell? I get this makes sense for something like Fortnite, which has tens of thousands of dollars worth of content, but it's a free-to-play game. You pay for nothing. And you pay more if you want it. But in a AAA game like Battlefield, COD, Assassin's Creed, and any other large franchise that is not free-to-play, MTX are rampant and absolutely everywhere. Microtransactions are actually a scourge on gaming and everything that it should be. Imagine paying the price of an Xbox Series X and a PlayStation 5 on just a single damn game. I couldn't imagine someone doing that, and I sincerely hope no one has done that. But the fact that Ubisoft just pumps out a reskinned weapon or armor set every week shows that this is working. This disgusting business model of microtransactions is somehow still being supported and encouraged by consumers. If you want to learn more about this, I highly recommend my microtransaction review of Jedi Fallen Order to see my full thoughts on MTX. Those videos are like 4 minutes long, and that's about how long I've been ranting about it here, so do whatever you must. Okay. I need to cool down right now, so let's talk about something else. There is one more update to the game that I need to talk about. On the 19th of October, actually after I started recording this video, the Discovery Tour was launched. It's free to all people who have the base game, but may also be sold as a standalone game for $20 for parties interested. I haven't played all of it, only around an hour, so I'll give you my experience from this. Unlike the Discovery Tour of Odyssey and Origins, Discovery Tour Viking Age has a narrative that weaves all of the tours together. To my knowledge, there are 3 protagonists: an English monk, a Viking raider, and King Alfred. Point being, you feel way more grounded in this tour because you're actually making a difference in the world. You're an actual person with meaning, unlike whoever's watching this video. The Viking Age Discovery Tour follows the same sort of formula as the base game, with mysteries and wealth-like icons being displayed across the map. These, of course, aren't the same as the base game, just the same icon colors. Gold wealth icons indicate learning opportunities that expand your knowledge on Viking life in the 800s. Mysteries, in my opinion, are far more interesting and intriguing. Instead of talking about Viking life, talking about the making of Valhalla is what they would do instead. These offer a behind-the-scenes look at how the game is made. And these are narrated by our favorite Ubisoft employee and known game developer, Sean Hastings. Wait, what? Why is he voicing the Discovery Tour? Who the hell is he talking to? On the other hand, it offers some not-so-interesting facts about how the way Jesper Kid's name is actually pronounced.
Of Jesper Kid.
I mean, I've been a fan of his for so long, and I cannot believe that I did not know this was how you pronounce his name. It's kind of bizarre that I didn't know this. I'm actually kind of shook right now. And there isn't really much else to say on the Discovery Tour. It's a function that I'm sure most people will never use, but it's a welcome addition to the game overall. And by the way, as an addition, by completing the Discovery Tour, you can earn a new one-handed sword, an armor set, as well as a lot of other cosmetics. Great to see you be giving this way of free content. So there are currently 2 extra paid DLCs in Valhalla, with not 1, not 2, not 3, well, yeah, 3. 3 more rumored to be on the way. And this is just a short segment on these 2 that I will include. You can see my full thoughts on Wrath of the Druids in one of my recent videos, and the Siege of Paris in an upcoming one. I think these DLCs are pretty good overall. They have a nice length, good story, amazing world, and a lot of content. As I said, I won't say much about these. I just wanted to add this to the video by just saying, I think the DLCs are pretty good, considering the amount of time we've had to wait to get both of them. I like them, they're nice, for what we have. So this segment is going to be the shortest of the 3 that I have prepared in this video, and this is about the technical state of the game. When Valhalla launched, it was riddled with bugs. The game had a massive screen tear problem that I'm not sure you can see in this footage, and it had many people hoping to get it fixed. Along with other bugs, this made Valhalla the buggiest launch of any AC game. Yes, I mean that, even worse than Unity. The glitches in Unity were minor inconveniences and funny things, but some of Valhalla's were not. When the game first launched, thousands of people reported tens of hours of worth of save files being wiped without a trace. Yikes. Ubisoft has since fixed this problem, thankfully, so there are no worries. But over the course of the year, there have had to be many bug fixes. Aside from a few minor but annoying ones, the game is in a really good technical state. There is one glitch, however, regarding the Avenge quest that makes the quest accepted alert pop up on your screen as well as the audio cue every 10 seconds or so, and it is absolutely so annoying. There was also another glitch I ran into where I was flung into the air randomly in Paris and just freaking died, and to this day I do not know how that happened. You saw it in the last clip. But aside from that, those are the only bugs that I really found since, well, forever in Valhalla. So good job, Ubisoft. Want a cookie? So now, unfortunately, the time has come. That is it for this month's video. This is the longest one that I've ever made, and it was absolutely a drain. But if you like this content, I suggest subscribing or leaving a like, because this monster video took so much time to make. If this video gets more than 100 views, I will probably shift my content to be more long form like this, but if not, don't worry, the 10 minutes will still be there. And that's a big if, because, I mean, if this doesn't go well, it would feel kind of like a waste of time, and I don't want it to be. And I want to thank you guys all for 100 subscribers. Yeah, as the day of recording this section, I have hit 100 subscribers, and I cannot express how thankful I am that I finally hit this milestone. I hope to grow big in the future, and thank you all for supporting me. So I hope that the effort that was put into this comes back, and yeah, so to anyone who managed to watch nearly an hour of me talking straight, have an amazing day, people.